It affects you in a couple of different ways, but the primary way is that, ultimately we don't want to try to sell to people. I mean, I think that there is on the back, and there's always goals that our clients and our shareholders, that those corporations need to hit in order to make sure that the companies stay afloat. But ultimately, we want to make sure that the products that we think you can use and that you'll appreciate are seen by you, and you have the opportunity to integrate them into your daily life. And so what happens with all the research that we do is that hopefully we put only those specific messages that mean something to you in front of you. The worst thing that we can probably do is send the wrong message to the incorrect audience, because that doesn't do anything for either party. There's the front end party, which is you as the end user, who says, oh, well, I have no use for a Ford Mustang GT. Why am I seeing this on, whatever site I'm going to? And then if you're seeing that, but then you're not purchasing, the back end, which is our clients, whose expectation is we're going to hit a certain sales goal because as a result of this promotional effort, they're not going to realize that either. And so the more rigor that we can put behind who needs to see this, who will benefit from it, and there's a lot of information to be looked at, the better we can arm you to know about the options that you have for certain decisions you want to make about purchases. And the better we can help our clients to ensure them that the money that they're giving us, every dollar is being used to help message the correct person at all times. Especially in the pharmaceutical and healthcare realm, it matters. I mean, it's exponentially more important than, say, something you'd see like on an as seen on television ad, where they might go out, they might spend $1 million on the remnant inventory that nobody wants, which is why you see them at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what works for them, because they're able to get airtime for, less than it would cost to have them buy a primetime spot during American Idol, for instance, right? But for us, we put a lot of emphasis on making sure that we're targeting the right people, because ultimately we don't want them to feel like we're selling. We want them to feel like they should feel like we're helping, right? Like we're helping inform them of their options for different treatments in the healthcare and pharmaceutical landscape. And so it's important for us to make sure that rigor is done, and that our clients are very, very confident in the fact that we've identified not only the right people, but the right places to message them. A lot of the agencies that I've worked at, or that just exist in general, are specialists, right? So they may have a digital specialty, or they may have a television or print specialty, or they may have a creative specialty. And so what that means is a lot of them work in silos, right? Like when you talk about the creative and that's what your deliverable is for a client, you only concern yourself with what that creative looks and feels like. And the research that you use to actually inform the decisions you make about creative are really done with blinders on if you're not working smartly. So what I want to talk about today is, all the different ways that we're given the opportunity to take the easy way out and look at things with those blinders on, but how you can really expand your focus and work collaboratively with the agencies that you may not be responsible for, to make sure that everything that you're doing is informed by not only the best research, but also by the best people. Oftentimes agencies get a little bit proprietary, so we don't want to share what we've done with somebody else because they might take it, or it's going to be this, this little coup if they see it. But the fact of the matter is, everybody that's working for this client has their best interest in mind. And so it makes sense for us to share that information and not be afraid that somebody's going to think an idea might be stupid, or an idea might be so good that we want to steal it. So we can talk about it in terms of process, we can talk about it in terms of outputs, right? So in terms of process, we might see, someone might be, let in, and they might see behind the curtain of what happens at, say, Digitas Health, and they might go, oh, this is the secret sauce. This is how, they're making their clients so happy, or this is how they run a creative work session to make sure that their actual end product that goes to the client is as good as it can be and is spot on with the client's directive and their goals and their objectives. Whereas on the other side, we can talk about the outputs, right? Somebody might see our work before it's done. They might be able to see the direction that we're headed in terms of the tonality of an ad, or the imagery, or the types of words that we're using, or in the case of healthcare, the sort of claims that we're making about a drug's efficacy that might be questionable or might be spot on. And there's things that they can do, or things that they might do to cheapen that for certain agencies if they're working with them. But I think the fact of the matter is, every agency is getting paid to do the same thing, which is to work, again, on the best interests of the client. If our clients didn't believe that all of us could work collaboratively, or were very smart as individuals or as a group, they wouldn't have brought us on. And so a lot of what my talk is about is not only exhausting the information sources that you have at hand, but also making sure that you understand that there's a lot of other information about this audience, a lot of other information about the brand that you're working on that can be used to help facilitate work sessions and to ultimately help great work get done. I think that the misnomer often is that are things like TV and print are sort of fading in the advent of e-readers and tablets and video on demand and TiVo and just the web in general. But I also feel like there's a very, very specific place for those channels, and they're going to continue to thrive if used properly. You know, I as a you know, late 20s male, probably the person that's going to time shift their TV viewing the most. I watch more live TV probably now than I ever have, right? Like there's a reason for that, because I just want to relax. I don't have things on my DVR I can just pull up all the time and watch. But I do think that it's important for us to make sure that we stay on the cusp of what's happening and be able to provide the best service for our clients, to always be forward thinking in terms of how we can reach people, right? Because oftentimes you might see the general population does, like let's just say like the 18 plus audience in America, just the general population, use their cell phones for email, for texting, and for, who knows, maybe just a general search, right? Location-based information. But there might be a burgeoning trend of people using their cell phones to play games, which is happening right now. But what that means is that while this trend is happening, it might mean that only 10% of people are actually doing that. But it's important for us to make sure that if those 10% of people are those who are going to be actively motivated to do something as a result of seeing an advertisement or a promotional message, we have a responsibility to not only identify that, but also bring it to the table as a potential avenue for us to explore. I think a lot of what happens, and I'll talk about this tonight a little bit, is that we use historical data too often to inform future decisions. But a lot of times, historical data is only based on what you've done. It can't think about things that you haven't done yet. So if you imagine a corporation, right? They have measurement down to a science. And they know that if they spend this many dollars in television, they should get this sort of return on investment for that in terms of sales, right? I just made that incredibly simple, but we'll think of it in those terms. But a lot of times what happens is their intelligence tells them, okay, let's put that money back into television or into print because we know that it's going to perform at a certain level for us. However, because they've never really, dabbled in, say, mobile, they haven't really done much with people's phones or with tablets, they can't project out what the ROI on that is. So a lot of times for corporations, when the bottom line is very important, if you can't determine what the return on investment is going to be, you're not willing to put your money there because it's an unknown for you. You have these known knowns that you can fall back on. But what that doesn't do, what it does do is it helps you really increase your profit month over month or quarter over quarter if you're using it properly. But what it doesn't do is help you evolve, right? I think the key for a lot of people is to continue to evolve their messaging mix and to continue to evolve their processes and their products. And we're trying to do the same exact thing. We're trying to make sure that our clients are always being shown the most forward-thinking ideas because they're going to be realities in a year. What might seem like a crazy idea today sitting in a meeting might be the most normal thing you've ever heard in a meeting this time next year. And so if a client hasn't been introduced to that early enough, they're going to get blindsided by it later when it's almost too late to jump in, or when competitors have jumped in, or when that trend is past saying you don't want to use it anymore. And then all of a sudden you're 2 years out from that recommendation, still falling back on the same 3 things you did 3 years ago. That's the fun part. And so when we have clients who are willing to let us just kind of do our own thing, and they'll hear us out, and then they'll not only listen to our recommendations, but also say, okay, you know what, guys, like carve out a little bit of money and time for you to actually do this. That's great, because we're not always going to win. We're not always right. We're trying to make the most informed decision that we can. And the motivation for us comes from the idea that our clients are willing to listen, willing to kind of take a chance. And we have some that are more traditional in their approach that says if it's tried and true and we know that it works, we're going to continue to do it. But there are some that say, you know what, like we can put 85 to 90% of our money into these things that are tried and true. I need to have 10% of my money go towards something that's new and different and exciting. Because a lot of them have to report what they're doing to people that are on their leadership teams or on their boards and say, okay, we're doing this and we're making this 90% of our dollars go towards something that we know is going to work, and we're doing this to make that more efficient. But this 10% is going to this wild idea that we never thought we would try, and if we come back in 3 or 4 months and we say it didn't work, then it didn't work. But if we come back and say it did work and it worked better than these 4 or 5 things that we know historically have proven of value, all of a sudden that becomes part of the mix and we can continue to evolve. And that's what makes part of our job fun.